everyone. This is Gilbert Jalad. I'm talking to you here from CPLS headquarters. This is Tufts On Tax, where all your tax law questions are answered here. Any trouble you are having with taxes regarding lawsuits, trouble with employers, businesses, friends, and family, even with the IRS. Your peace of mind is right here with Mr. T. Scott Tufts. He is the expert and the master when it comes to taxes and tax laws. You can call us always at 877-647-7887 or visit us on the web at cplspa.com, or you can email him directly to stufts@cplspa.com. That's stufts@cplspa.com. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too, as always. And it's been a while since we were here on Tufts on Tax discussing taxes, and with all this crazy things happening, can you fill us in what's been happening, what's been going on with all this stimulus and the taxes and COVID and all that stuff?
Yeah, so Gilbert, didn't expect to hit the end of the year last year with all of the things going on, and then have COVID impact myself and members of my family.
Oh, so, wow.
So,
well,
yeah.
We're glad you're safe.
Yeah, well, it was an experience. And, you know, it's hard to imagine spending 9 months feeling like you're doing everything to protect yourself from COVID and do the things that are prescribed, and all of the social distancing, the precautions that are taken. And then still to have it happen, to still get that, and I was, it was really an eye-opening experience, and the thing that got me was that even after you get something like COVID, there can be lingering impacts, and so I think it was really an eye-opening experience for me. So.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that, and I'm glad you guys, went past it, and you're okay, you and your family. That's definitely not something, easy to go through.
And here's the thing that can happen to some of our listeners, Gilbert, that I now have personal experience with. So
Absolutely.
You're going through something like COVID. You've got the impact that it can have on your family, but then you can turn around and try and deal with an agency like the IRS. And
Yep.
while you're on the phone with them and whatnot, and you're working through some issues, you can then experience what they're going through. These are real life people. They're doing their best to provide a service.
That's true.
And so these folks are going through, let's say, remoting in or whatnot. And during this time, I learned some things that, here I've been doing this 30 years. And I learned some things that I didn't know. And so, we'll get into that this second season. And I'm looking very much forward to bringing these topics to bear. Again, Gilbert, as we talked about last season, these forms, these things, it's all about data gathering and how the IRS gets the data. They're processing 100 million plus tax returns. And so they're trying to do their best with a complex tax code and complex tax laws. But the data gathering process might be as simple as you getting into a tax return preparation software, answering some questions, you hit good to go, and you might do it yourself. And what you don't realize is that the questions that are being asked of you actually may be just the beginning of the story.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's important for us to help folks realize that when they're answering some nebulous question, or maybe a question they didn't see coming, they understand the consequences or ramifications of that. So my hope for our second season is to really get even more into this data gathering process that folks are out there experiencing, where the IRS asks specific questions. We want to tell them why. And then we want to help them know when they need to pick up that red phone and call someone like myself and get the answers. And if their accountant is nervous about something or concerned about something, we want those folks to be able to contact myself or others and get the word out. So I'm looking forward to this coming season.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because this is the whole purpose of Tufts on Tax. We are here to inform people, clarify things, and there you go. You're the master of taxes, and you experienced something that you didn't expect to experience, and you saw some things that needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do.
Just a quick example, Gilbert. Many folks may not even know what CAWL stands for, right? And it's a special department within the IRS that deals with the mismatch between your W-2 and your Social Security. And so it's a dedicated arm of the IRS that will coordinate between your Social Security and, the credits that you have accumulated as a wage earner.
Okay.
And what happens is if there's not a match there, they will follow up within 3 years of your filing of your tax forms, your W-2s, and they'll come. And they'll come to fix it. Now, the good news is they're trying to fix something that you'd want fixed. You'd want the Social Security wages to match and give you credit in Social Security, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But there may be some latent penalties and some markers in your system where, this may affect your ability to work with the IRS. And only the folks at the IRS who are really able to have the know-how to get within all of their different databases that they're dealing with, can they even tell you that when you talk to them on the 800 line, so to speak. So anyway, so I saw that. I was aware of that department, but I actually got a chance to go through that example or an example where that was not known by all, many of the IRS people that you may talk to on a given basis. So it's just interesting. And so that's another goal I have for this podcast, is that we get the word out in these areas that folks, you're listening and you say, wow, that can help me. And hopefully that'll be the result.
I know,
of it.
because we won't, regular people like me and others, we would not know what to look for. And even if we fall into this mistake, like you said, even the IRS, some of them won't know. Right. So how would we know? And what if we are falling into some problems or trouble and we didn't discover it, we didn't know to look for it, they didn't ask us, they didn't inform us. So how can we go on, of course, hiring someone like you to help us, but how would we know to discover this? Or it could be too late to discover it, maybe.
Absolutely.
Sometimes.
Yeah, so like I said, the issue that I saw developing in a particular matter over the Christmas and holiday season, there was an example where the W-2 and Social Security wages and a security system was a mismatch. IRS doesn't even look at that until 3 years after those are filed. And so you can see how something like that can come back around long after you've,
filed taxes and everything.
Absolutely. So we're seeing this more and more. Folks are coming in and really studying how much they have on their Social Security statements that they get annually, comparing it to the wages as reported by their employers, and then coming to their attention there may be a problem. So we'll drill down on that this coming season, and hopefully, and then have some fun with it too, because these are topics like, as we've talked about, you hear tax and you gloss over. So those witnesses we had last year,
I'm one of them.
Some of the attorneys and folks that we will bring in, I kind of want to make it fun, if there is such a thing, and help lower the stress level when you hear these topics.
Absolutely, and so people can be informed at the same time, learn something. We want to educate them, and of course, the last season we had a couple of interviews with attorneys like Aubrey Ducker and Lisa Barquist on some forms that you were tackling, and we went through different forms, that like 6 segments that you had, and of course, we're going to have more interviews with other attorneys to learn more about their practices and what does it involve with taxes. And this season, we have a lot of subjects, a lot of material that we're going to go over, and it's going to be definitely something to learn and informative and also fun to have that knowledge,
So Gilbert, on that point, I think folks, I talk to the younger folks, and the generation now gets all the information out there, right? And they can look at these issues and they can determine, they can get at the information. But what I like about it is there's so much information out there that they're going through, but they're taking a discerning eye at it. And what's nice about it is it gives us a chance to talk about it and learn about it with a greater level of information available. So we'll see if we can pinpoint it. And then the other thing is, the only other thing I want to make sure our listeners hear, Gilbert, is as we go forward, we're going to, when we talk to these other folks, we're going to see what they do, in their practices, and see where it overlaps with these tax issues. Because I think our listeners would be surprised how much tax issues touch other areas of the law, how it can come up in litigation in different areas. So it's hard to imagine how taxes don't impact different areas, but also this data gathering process. And so when I keep talking about data gathering, I'm just talking about the idea that there might be a 1099, there might be a W-2, there might be a K-1, there might be specialized forms, especially when you deal internationally. So our conversations with Lisa Barquist, we're talking about that. And so it helps bring us all together, because folks will say, oh, yeah, I've experienced that. And then it brings that issue to the fore. So I'm looking very much forward to getting into that this second season.
Absolutely. And nobody's safe from these issues that they could fall in. Like some people would say, or I would say, for example, oh, I'm not going to have that problem. I'm not going to fall into that. I don't need to know that. No, you need to know. You might fall into it one day. You might, maybe you are in a situation right now you're not aware of that you need to learn about. So I see that we have several things we want to discuss today. Tricky questions here about when using tax return preparation software. I guess you wanted to discuss and inform the viewers or the listeners a little bit more about that.
Sure. So, Gilbert, one of the things that happened, because the government has dedicated itself to the stimulus payments, the economic impact payments, they also moved forward on the idea of what year would determine the thresholds of income. And so it's a fancy term called adjusted gross income, but they would focus in on who would be eligible. It would phase out at certain higher levels of income. So folks who are, acutely focused on getting the stimulus payments to them have to worry which year they're relying on. Is it going to be based on the income you made in 2019 and the tax returns you filed in 19 versus 2020? Well, 2020, that's not due till April 15th. Well, the government said, but if you get those in early, then that would become the year they would use. So, you can imagine a situation for folks who have a 2019 return. Maybe it was held up for some error or something like that.
Correct.
And there could be a processing problem. And the government doesn't yet show that you filed the 2019. So you can have a situation where you're looking to get the stimulus payment. They don't have a record of your 19 year in. You're racing to get the 20 year in. And now, when you look at the tax return preparation software that may be assisting you, let's say you're doing your own taxes, you may get questions about your stimulus payments from last year and so forth and so on. But in that tax return preparation software, there's some questions that are new or changed, and you need to be aware of them. And so I'd like to cover some of those with you, right? So one thing that's come up the last couple of years, we talked about it last year just briefly, but one thing I wanted to talk about is Bitcoin and virtual currency. On the face of the return, one of the first questions you will see in your tax return is, are you trading in Bitcoin? And they call it virtual currency.
I think I saw that.
Right.
I saw that, yeah.
So it's becoming more and more popular. The younger folks, but not just that, all kinds of folks are looking at it as an alternative to in investing. But here's the thing about Bitcoin and virtual currency. And I don't know if I'm going to get it right. I'm still trying to master it or understand it better. But the concept, Gilbert, is that as we look to provide alternatives to how we pay for things, the currency, the packing of payment ability within different areas, geographic, particular retail, one of the things that this Bitcoin and virtual currency will struggle with is, or what the government will struggle with is, can you tax it? Now, if you think of it like a highway, and you get on the highway, and while you're on the highway, there is a kind of different, you're not dealing with dollars, US dollars, you're not dealing with, a standard that would help you easily determine your taxable activity, right? Taxes, gains, income, and so forth.
Correct.
Because it's not until you exit that highway that there might be an ability to turn it back into US dollars to determine, well, you got on with you got on with $10, you get off with $20. You exited the highway of the Bitcoin virtual currency highway, and you went in with 10, you came out with 20. That's $10. They'll look to tax it.
Correct.
It's a little bit more complicated than that with Bitcoin, and those folks who are listening, who are well aware of the highs and lows of Bitcoin, may say that, well, I'm not so sure that's where that's going to go. And here's the thing: our policymakers are looking to see what they can do to tax that highway activity. And so I don't know if that analogy works for our listeners, but it kind of at least says if there's a yes/no question on your tax form, and it says, are you on that highway, and you answer yes, then you're letting the government know that they need to maybe look at your activity while you're on the highway. But here's the greater problem. Let's say you mistakenly or purposely said no when you were on the highway. That's a bad one. Because if the IRS has over the years said, if you answer a yes/no question and you get it and it's wrong, and they find out, they may look at you criminally.
Oh, wow.
So these yes/no questions can be really daunting.
Very crucial.
Right. And so let's say someone's a little apprehensive about discussing their Bitcoin activities, and they get to that question, and they take a view where they just don't want the government to know, a kind of personal interest, idea. They can't really go down that road, right? So the yes/no box that's appearing there is right there for the government to start really looking at. And I know there's a lot of discussion about how they may or may not tax that highway activity, but that highway itself is under scrutiny, no question about it. And someone once said, if the government, you remember the baseball game, and someone caught the baseball that was a famous home run, and they said, well, can we tax it? And everybody kind of laughed, but the theory was that if that baseball generated a sale or a gift, then there could be taxes because it would be worth a whole lot. So I would just say that the taxes of the world have always been creative. Those who are avoiding them or whatnot, and those who ask for them. So I hope that makes some sense. But that's one thing, Gilbert, that's coming up hot and heavy right now. How is your tax return preparation software? And when I say that, I mean not just yours. Like, let's say if you're using your own software to prepare your own return, but everyone needs to know that your CPA is doing the same thing with their particular software. Now, that software tends to be very good. Your accountant tends to be pretty knowledgeable of the data that goes in. That software will kick out to your accountant diagnostics. In other words, weaknesses in your return. So, there's an idea that this software isn't just taking data and spitting it out. It's trying to analyze it just like the government would, or at least, in some ways, to catch mistakes, catch tendencies, things like this, things that go outside the norms, if you will. But this yes/no question is so important, Gilbert, with what's going on in the world. I just wanted to emphasize that aspect of it. It's right there in your tax return. It's right there in the preparation software to answer it. You got to answer it correctly. And if you've got some concerns in that regard, that's a question that I can help them deal with, either because there's been an audit and they didn't disclose something. How serious is it? And we'll gauge that, Gilbert, as we go down the road, because I expect that to become an increasingly important question that will be looked at while they're auditing or looking at someone's tax return.
Quick question, now that you
Sure.
brought that up. I mean, is there a reason that they might say, other than if someone wants to lie, or would there be a gray area that would make them stop and pause and say, oh, is it yes or no? Because it should be clear. If they're dealing with it, yes. If I'm not, I don't have it, no. I mean, I remember seeing it on the taxes, and I'm like, no, we don't do that. Right. I mean, I haven't even got to even thinking about that. So that was easy yes and no question for me. But would there be a gray area when they get faced with that question to answer yes or no?
So let's talk about the prior example of this that's easy to look at. Is the foreign bank accounts. So when you got to the yes, no, do you have a foreign bank account on the old Schedule A, which is your, and Schedule B, the interest statement of the form, there would be a yes, no there. Do you have a foreign bank account? Well, when you actually look at it, it says, do you have signature authority over a foreign bank account? So the signature authority is really a banking issue, which is, are you the one that has the ability with the bank to sign on the account, regardless of whether there's income in it, regardless of whether it's really your account? So there were scenarios where someone would have signature authority on an account, and it wouldn't even be their account, and they still had to check the yes box. So that would be a gray area where someone would say, I did not realize that. I did it, the return quickly. But here's the problem. If the question is raised to you, Gilbert, do you have signature authority over any foreign bank accounts? And you answer no, knowing that you had one of those accounts, then that could be a problem. But here's where the government really gets concerned. Let's say there's $1 million in the bank account, and you try and say, isn't it gray? I didn't know, whatever. At some point, the materiality of answering no will not excuse your answering that question the wrong way. So I understand that if it's looked at, you would try and say, I didn't realize it, or I didn't know.
Correct.
And that may be. There could be always examples of this. I think of a husband and wife, and the wife doesn't know about the foreign bank account. It's a joint return. It gets signed. They answer the wrong way. Will they go after the spouse who wasn't participating in let's say, the preparation of the return, and can show that he, and I say she, whatever it might be in the marital relationship, they would say, I didn't know, and they would have a different standing than the person doing the return. So I think it's another side of that. So we had the foreign bank account before that question. When I unpack it for you and say it's a little bit more about signature authority, then you say, I see. Well, I think virtual currency is the same thing. If you bought $1 of Bitcoin, you're trading in Bitcoin. It's a yes answer.
Correct, yeah.
And you got $1 of Bitcoin.
At least you would have the knowledge that
you would think.
You're involved in this. You
sure,
would know. Okay.
I would think so. So I think it's going to be a tough thing to wiggle out from. So I don't see gray area, but it's possible. Like I said, a husband and wife, or some relationship.
A rare situation.
Yeah, where maybe the spouse doesn't know that they engaged in the virtual currency, which is possible.
So when in doubt, ask an expert like you. So we move on. There's other segments to this that you wanted to talk about. Well, you mentioned the foreign bank account, right?
Yeah, and then let's tell you another one. So I saw in the software a very interesting topic, and I'll make this quick. Okay. One of the questions on the tax return preparation software might be, I see that you're getting a 1099 form, right? The question on your software might be, are you getting a 1099 from someone who used to be your employer and gave you a W-2? So you'd be like, wow, that's an interesting question, right? Why would they want to know that?
Yeah.
Right? So
why?
Well, okay, so we talked about it last season.
Correct.
You're a W-2 wage earner, and then for whatever reason, a decision is made to treat you as an independent contractor. Was that with your permission? Was that something you asked for? Is the relationship changed to where that's a valid change in classification? Were you even aware of it? Do you know that maybe you're looking for a W-2 and you get a 1099 and say, what happened? What about the withholdings you thought were being taken out of your pay? So that's kind of where that goes. So the key there is to understand that the questions are appearing either in the software, on the return, or both, and to understand why they're asking it. So I think what I'd want to leave everybody with from today's segment is if they ask a question, your software or the return, right? Don't just blindly answer it.
Correct, yeah.
Ask, why are they asking me this question? And then I think you can start to realize, and if the answer to that, Gilbert, is I have no idea why they're asking me that question, then maybe that's time to ask someone who knows the answer to that
like
question.
yourself,
Right,
with
right.
all your knowledge to
Correct.
actually clarify that answer for them and help them if they need help in that area, because they might be in a situation that need your expertise.
And one other thing, so one thing that we can do, and I will be focused on, is when those questions that are asked trigger a unclear answer, or when I say why, right? Those questions trigger the why, and then someone like myself says, I'm not so sure why, right? We're going to get them those answers. We're going to drill down and help folks. So I don't know if it's necessarily the same answer, but I did not realize that it appears to me that the IRS assigns you as a sole proprietor one number for your lifetime, one EIN, employer identification number. So again, we're not talking your Social Security number. If you're a sole proprietor at any point in time in your prior history, and you were able to get an employer identification number for that business.
So that's once in life.
That's one time.
Oh, wow.
You're going to be expected to continue to use that no matter how many other sole proprietor businesses you're using.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's a very interesting development that I was not aware of. And it's something that the service is looking to rein in perhaps on. And I think it's going to be because, and I don't know this, but I think it's going to be because there are too many numbers flying. And so there would be the effort to contain that. But we'll take a look at it. But keep in mind, if you have a single member LLC, it's by default in the United States a disregarded entity. What that means, bottom line, is that activity goes on a Schedule C. That ID number, if it's not your Social Security number, it would be a taxpayer identification number, with 2 digits and then the number that follows. And that's important because that number will need to stay with all other sole proprietorships that you have. So it gets it's going to get interesting. Spouses then will have the opportunity to have one each, but no more than one.
Oh, wow.
So it may create problems because I imagine out there are folks using more than one. There might be folks who are struggling with using their Social Security number with their sole proprietorships. We're going to take a look at it this season.
So, I came to my mind. So, how are they getting another one if they're not supposed to have another one? Are they able to get another one?
Well, so the IRS has a process where you get the EIN number issued, and you obtain that. But in the past, there have been accountants and others who have had a slate of numbers, and they've been giving out those numbers.
Oh,
so it's possible for you to get a third party to give you a number that maybe shouldn't have been given to you. So it's possible to have more than one. But the IRS will look to assign one number for you no matter how many sole proprietorships you have. That's at least based on what I'm seeing. I've had that said to me a couple of times by IRS officials. So we're going to follow up on that. And that's a kind of, oh, I didn't know that kind of question that we're going to try and bring to each of our segments so that folks get something very practical that they can take with them.
And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about that. I mean, if you face that yourself, I'm sure regular people like me would not know. And if you have a business and you have a number and you think you're following the right, the regulations and the rules, and you're not. And again, we go back to all these issues that we discussed earlier, that when in doubt, ask an expert. If there is a why, you might want to clarify it with someone, because you don't want to answer the wrong thing, because if you answer the wrong thing, you're a criminal.
Well, right. And even
or,
if you're not a criminal, you may be asking yourself for some troubles and I think one of the things that happens with taxes is something can come up later And it's not just the liability that may be a thorn in your side. It's going to be the added penalties and interest. And I think that becomes frustrating for folks, because then that seems like a lot. It usually is a lot, and it compounds the problem. Mm-hmm. So again, we get the word out now. You ask why and get it addressed now. It's smarter, it's preemptive, and it's the way to go. So,
before it gets messy, and then it's very stressful, and they won't waive the fees as
not very.
I
mean, they can, but these are situations where things outside your own control, disasters and things like that. Service will work with you on waiver of penalties under those situations. We can help them with that, but by and large, no, you're going to be held to that, and it's going to become a building problem that you need to address.
Absolutely. Well, I think it was a great episode to come back after a while and talk about these important issues, and we'll tackle them again in the future, and we'll tackle even more subjects. Now, there's something we're going to discuss next time about the American Rescue Plan Act greatly expands benefits through the tax code in 2021. So how? So
what we're going to be talking about next time, Gilbert, is more and more the tax code has been asked, and I would say the IRS has been asked to administer, and this is tough on these great folks that work there. They're being asked to deliver not just these rules of how much to tax you, but the decisions made by our policymakers of what the tax code can do. So if the child tax credit is changing and the rules that go with that, that's one thing. If there's stimulus payments being asked, if the IRS is being asked to monitor that, that's another thing. And then if the rules of the road are changing. And so what we're going to talk about is how this recently enacted American Rescue Plan is got a number of tax provisions that we're going to unpack and talk about. Also has some unemployment benefits at the federal and state level that are being adjusted or expanded. So we'll talk about that, and we'll get into those topics next time.
Absolutely, and it sounds like a very interesting topic, and everyone they all want to know, because this is what's happening right now. So thanks a lot, Scott, and we'll come back next time with Tufts on Tax. Everyone, this is Gilbert Jalad with T. Scott Tufts on Tufts on Tax at the CPLS headquarters. You can always call us at 877-647-7887 or visit us on the web at cplspa.com. Or if you have more questions, more than what we discussed, or if you're, for next time or this time, you can always email him at stufts@cplspa.com. That is stufts@cplspa.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, prepare all your tax questions for Mr. T. Scott at